With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories. St. Kitts Nevis Agriculture Minister underscores relationship between agriculture and capital markets at Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference.
St. Kitts Nevis Police records a 57% homicide resolution rate.
ECCB issues alert on fraudulent stablecoin activity. Opposition MP in Guyana roasts government on economic policies. 11 countries to benefit from the USAID-funded Caribbean Resilient Economies and Sectors Activity Reset Grant Program. Internationally, 4 female hostages held in Gaza by Hamas handed over to Israeli military. Now, the details. St. Kitts and Nevis's Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources, the Honourable Samuel Duggins, recently participated in a compelling panel discussion at the Jamaica Stock Exchange 20th Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference on January 23, 2025. The minister's presentation focused on transforming agriculture with advanced technology through the market. He underscored the pivotal relationship between agriculture and capital markets and the necessity of innovative solutions to foster growth in both sectors. In his address, Minister Duggins emphasized the critical role of agriculture in nourishing communities and the influence of the capital markets in driving economic innovation.
Now, these two sectors, we may say that they are distinctly different. However, if we really put it together, we recognize that there is a shared destiny in terms of each sector. When we really look at it, both sectors serve as lifelines for humanity. Agriculture is nourishing the bodies of our people. Capital markets fueling economic innovation. And yet, as we sit and stand here, both of these sectors are facing pressing challenges. Challenges that demand bold action, challenges that demand innovative policies, challenges that demand a future-focused vision.
He highlighted the pressing challenges both sectors face, calling for bold action and innovative policies that would leverage advanced technologies and sustainable practices to engender shared prosperity. According to the minister, these sectors serve as lifelines for humanity. It is paramount to develop transformative avenues to create generational wealth. Duggins' presentation focused mainly on increasing participation in capital markets, especially among small farmers and rural entrepreneurs.
Too often, and too many of our people, view these markets as arenas for the privileged few, rather than seeing them as dynamic engines of shared prosperity. Imagine if we expanded participation, empowering small farmers, agri-tech investors, and rural entrepreneurs to tap into capital markets. Because it's by democratizing access and boosting liquidity, we could transform these markets into inclusive platforms that fuel sustainable growth.
He argued that by democratizing access and enhancing liquidity, stakeholders could convert these markets into platforms conducive to sustainable growth. He lauded the Jamaica Stock Exchange for fostering initiatives that inspire regional collaboration, emphasizing the importance of extending these benefits to those who need them most, mainly small-scale farmers across the Caribbean. Duggins urged a commitment to sustainability within agriculture, especially as the climate crisis looms.
It is our obligation to focus on sustainability. It's not just an option. And as climate change intensifies, my friends, agriculture sits at the crossroads of peril and possibility. You see, this sector accounts for 2/3 of global emissions, yes. However, this sector holds the key to a sustainable future, undoubtedly. You see, food and agricultural companies are under pressure these days to adopt cleaner, more efficient practices. And this, my friends, is the area where agri-tech shines as a beacon of hope. You see, wherever there is a challenge, there is an opportunity that lies await.
His address mentioned introducing the Drought Resilience Irrigation Project DRIP in St. Kitts and Nevis, which equips farmers with essential training and technology to optimize water use, thus marking a transition toward precision agriculture driven by advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence. Minister Duggins asserted the vital connection between agriculture and finance.
But at the end of the day, it does not work independently. It must be driven by finance. And that is where these capital markets come into play. So let us ensure that our small-scale farmers have full access to these markets. We recognize the culture may be different. They may not be as financially savvy, but that is where grace comes in. And when I say grace, not just Grace Kennedy, but grace in understanding.
He reinforced the notion of inclusivity in access to capital markets for small farmers, acknowledging the need for understanding and supporting within varying cultural contexts. In a subsequent social media post, he reflected on the insights shared during his participation, noting the importance of visionary investments and embracing sustainability and technology in securing a prosperous future for the region.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force High Command gave the nation a glimpse of the impact of their policing strategies in capturing perpetrators of crime in 2024. Speaking on In Focus on January 22, 2025, Mr. Cromwell Henry, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, said 16 of the 28 homicides committed in 2024 were solved using investigative technologies, aided by the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force Forensic Unit. Notably, an additional arrest was made last year for a 2023 homicide.
We rely a lot on technology. A lot of our crimes are solved using forensics. We have our forensics department that meticulously do crime scene investigations, and we collect samples, collect evidence, and we use labs in the UK and the US and different parts of the Caribbean to help aid in our investigations. And so a number of those crimes were solved using forensics. That almost guarantee convictions, and so we are confident that when we make an arrest.
Henry also attributed the 10% reduction in homicides to a 57% resolution rate, thus emphasizing that there is a direct link between detection and prevention.
That 57% increase also contributed to the reduction, because detection aids in prevention, helps prevention. If a person knows that he has a high chance of being caught after he commits a crime, he or she, yes, then he's less likely to try. If he knows that he has a high chance of getting away with it, he's more likely to do it. And so we believe that detection is a good form of prevention. And so we deliberately set out to detect these crimes in order to prevent further crimes.
According to Henry, in 2024, more than 25 persons were remanded at His Majesty's prison awaiting trial for murder. He explained that law enforcement drives down the nation's murder rate by identifying and arresting violent offenders from the streets. He further shared that alongside those arrests, other expanded efforts helped to reduce crime, including positive community engagements targeting gun possession and police patrols. Meanwhile, 18 illegal firearms and over 300 rounds of ammunition were removed from the streets in 2024. The Deputy Commissioner of Police anticipates that crime will continue to spiral downward nationwide.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, has issued a critical warning regarding fraudulent activities associated with a counterfeit stablecoin currently being promoted on the Solana blockchain. In an official statement, the ECCB emphasized that it is not affiliated with any crypto token, ventures, or stablecoins operating on public blockchains. The warning stems from increased misuse of the bank's branding. Scammers are reportedly using the ECCB's official logo for these deceptive promotions. This misrepresentation is misleading and poses significant financial risks to unsuspecting investors. The ECCB has confirmed that it is actively collaborating with relevant authorities to address and mitigate the fraudulent utilization of its name and branding. The central bank concluded its central bank digital currency CBDC pilot, Dcash, in January 2024. While the ECCB is currently in the preliminary stages of rolling out a commercial version, Dcash 2.0, it reiterates that it does not operate any digital currency or stablecoin in the market. All official updates regarding Dcash will continue to be communicated through the ECCB's and Dcash's official websites. Acknowledging the volatility and risks inherent in digital currencies, the ECCB has urged individuals to remain vigilant and conduct thorough research before engaging in any online crypto token ventures. The central bank has underscored the prevalence of scams in cryptocurrency, particularly highlighting schemes such as rug pulls and pump and dumps. In these scenarios, malicious actors orchestrate rapid price manipulations to lure new investors, only to liquidate their positions, ultimately leaving the latecomers with investments in assets that plummet in value. Specifically, a rug pull occurs when the creators of a crypto token artificially inflate its market value to attract unsuspecting buyers, subsequently selling off their holdings before the price collapses. Similarly, a pump and dump scheme is predicated on collaborative efforts among various holders of a low-value token. This generates speculative interest, which leads to an inflated price. The ECCB has highlighted the dire consequences for individuals left holding these deflated tokens, emphasizing the limited avenues for recourse they face after being victimized by such fraudulent activities. The ECCB has encouraged anyone encountering suspicious activities or unsure about digital currency investments to contact the bank directly via the official communication channel info@eccb-centralbank.org. By fostering awareness and vigilance within the community, the ECCB aims to protect consumers from financial exploitation and enhance the integrity of the financial ecosystem within the Eastern Caribbean region. Maintaining a proactive stance in a rapidly evolving digital financial landscape is paramount to safeguarding investors from the pitfalls of cryptocurrency-related fraud. In regional news, opposition MP in Guyana roasts government on economic policies. Guyana News source reports.
The national budget debate opened with opposition member of parliament, Charita Finance, hitting out at the government over its economic policies, which she believes have left Guyanese poorer than before. MP Finance said despite oil wealth flooding the treasury and a massive budget of $1.382 trillion, the country's poverty rate has worsened to 48%.
This is a stark reality of PPP's governance. We're spending over $3 trillion in oil revenues from 2020 to 2024 has left our people poorer than they were before. By the end of 2025, the PPP will have spent $4.7 trillion, over $22 million per household. Yet, walk through any community in Guyana, speak to any family and ask them, are you $22 million better off? The answer echoes through every market, every street, every home, no. Instead, working families struggle harder than ever to survive in a country that paradoxically boasts the highest GDP per capita.
Accusing the administration of using the country's financial resources to enrich a few, the opposition MP said the high level of mismanagement taking place is a systematic betrayal of the Guyanese people. She told the assembly that the salary increases offered to public servants are no match to the high inflation rate.
According to the Bureau of Statistics, data from the Urban Consumer Price Index shows that from 2019 to 2024, inflation went up by 20%. And worse, from 2019 to 2024, food inflation went up by 44.8%. Inflation in food items does not affect the wealthy, Mr. Speaker. It affects the working class, and it is detrimental to the working poor. With the inflation rate of food at 44.8% from 2019 to 2024, the current administration was proud to announce wages and salaries for the period for just 35%.
Additionally, Finance said the government has failed to adjust the minimum wage. She pointed out that between 2015 and 2019, the APNU-AFC government increased wages and salaries by 77%, when inflation only increased by 5.4%. She said even as Guyanese continue to battle high food prices and the majority may be struggling with their salaries, the government has been on a boring binge.
From 2020 to 2025, sir, the PPP added a debt burden of $5.9 million to every household in Guyana. $5.9 million is not a small amount to the struggling families who are barely surviving paycheck to paycheck, sir. $5.9 million should have been used to take people from below the poverty line and providing them with a decent standard of living, sir. But instead, the increasing debt is being used to further enrich the wealthy while leaving the poor to help pay that bill.
The opposition MP said while 57% of Guyana's population cannot afford anything beyond the most basic essentials of life, the government has decided to saddle them with $5.9 million in debt per household. Further, she said it was disingenuous for the government to compare the debt to GDP using non-oil GDP during the coalition administration to oil-included GDP under the current administration. From 2020 to 2024, the non-oil economy of Guyana grew by 36% in total. However, finance said the stock of public debt grew by a staggering 253%, which represents a 7% growth in debt for every 1% growth in the economy. She said the PPP increased the national debt by 18 times as much as the coalition government, spent $2.1 trillion more than the coalition did, and has only delivered 17% more growth than the coalition delivered.
11 countries to benefit from the USAID-funded Caribbean Resilient Economies and Sectors Activity Reset Grant Program. DBS St. Lucia has the details.
The USAID-funded Caribbean Reset Program focuses on supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, with innovative solutions in the blue and green economies, tourism, agriculture, food processing, and climate resilience that would spark economic growth. Reset's approach goes beyond financial grants. It also includes workshops, capacity-building initiatives, and hands-on technical assistance to help participants refine their proposals and develop scalable solutions. Patricia Shako, the chief of party for the program, which was officially launched last October, explains that the goal is to identify anything that shows innovation and new ways of doing things and building resilience in the Caribbean.
To ensure that we are doing equitable development and being inclusive, we are targeting women, marginalized folks. We are looking especially at Indigenous persons and persons with disabilities. In terms of helping these groups access finance, we are also doing workshops to build capacity. We are doing some hand-holding to ensure that good ideas are fully developed so they too can participate in the grants program.
In addition to direct support, Reset is addressing critical barriers to investment, such as disaster risk financing, by introducing insurance products and financial tools to mitigate risks. The program aims to attract private investment and encourage sustainable economic activities in the region.
And so a lot of interesting projects are not coming to the table because there is no insurance to provide a bailout if there is a disaster impact. Reset is looking at disaster risk finance, at looking at layering to ensure that all needs are met.
Reset aims to leverage $200 million in private investment, support 300 marginalized and indigenous persons, and train at least 150 individuals in blended and climate finance to foster long-term economic growth.
Our grant call is open. It opened on December 4, 2024. It will be open for a year. We are looking for innovation. We're looking for exciting ideas. Even if your proposal is not fully developed, please contact us. We have technical assistance to help people also develop their ideas to ensure that no good idea is left behind. And we look forward to hearing from you at CaribbeanReset.org.
Caribbean Reset program will benefit MSMEs in Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, the Bahamas, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. This has been Nisha Paul reporting for GBN News.
We now bring you these international reports.
4 Israeli soldiers have been released under the Gaza ceasefire deal. They were walked out by those Hamas fighters, and they were then taken onto a stage, and the 4, who are Karine Ariev, 20 years old, Daniela Gilboa, who's also 20, Nama Levy, who is 20, and Lariri Albag, who is now 19, were taken by those Hamas fighters, which they were dressed in uniforms in Palestine Square in Gaza City, where we had seen building up a number of those Hamas fighters and also a number of civilians also surrounding that area. This handover this time not as chaotic on Sunday when the first of the hostages were released. As Rushdie was saying, the Hamas fighters more control over this. Earlier they had signed what were some documents with the 2 members of the International Red Cross. We know that helicopters have been seen at a military base near to the border. The Israeli forces ready to take them, so they'll go into the IDF, and then of course they will have medical checks and they will be reunited with their families. Let's bring in Yolande Nell, who is in Tel Aviv in Hostages Square. And Yolande, we've seen the pictures of people crying and also cheering when they saw those pictures. Just explain what it was like at that moment in Hostages Square.
Well, I mean, through the morning there has been a tense calm that's set in, and people from the Hostage and Missing Families Forum told me that they were very worried that perhaps these women would not appear in good health, that they might not all even be alive. They're worried about psychological warfare on the part of Hamas. So you can imagine that when those 4 women aged 19 and 20 appeared in Gaza, then were walked onto a stage briefly there, people were smiling, they were cheering and whistling. People are breathing a sigh of relief. Now we've seen those Red Cross vehicles in Palestine Square in Gaza being driven away. It should not take very long for that convoy to leave the Gaza Strip to make its way to the place where the parents of these 4 young women are waiting for them. And then after initial checks, they will be taken to a hospital in Petah Tikva, which is not far from Tel Aviv. That is the expectation, where they will undergo more in-depth medical checks and also be able to meet more of their loved ones, people who have been desperately waiting for news. But just also to remind you, I mean, this is a day of mixed emotions, really. I'm surrounded by posters which show the other hostages who remain inside Gaza, with many of them not even due to be released under the terms of this initial 6-week ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that has been negotiated by the US and Qatar and Egypt. So people are extremely worried about those who remain inside, and it's pointed out to us there are some posters around, indeed quite prominently, of one of the remaining young women from this surveillance unit on the edge of Gaza who was abducted on the very same day at the same time as this group of 4, and she has not been released as part of this deal. We've also not seen returning one of the last remaining women civilian hostages taken from a kibbutz close to Gaza on the 7th of October. And so people remain extremely concerned about those who remain and whether this fragile ceasefire will stick, enabling others to be released.
Week 1 of Donald Trump's second presidency, and a lot has happened. On Monday, he was sworn in.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
2 more speeches, a rally and a press conference would follow, and executive orders, 26 of them. Some signed at the rally with pens thrown to the crowd, others signed in the Oval Office. They brought a declaration of a national emergency on the US border with Mexico, pardons for many involved in January the 6th, withdrawal from the World Health Organization, withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, the Gulf of Mexico renamed the Gulf of America, and restrictions eased on oil and gas exploration, or as Mr. Trump put it, drill, baby, drill. There was this too.
There are only two genders, male and female.
On Gaza, the president said he wasn't confident the ceasefire will hold and added,
"It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, the best weather."
By this point, a gesture by Elon Musk was getting attention, and the president's day ended with 3 balls and some dancing to YMCA with a sword. Tuesday brought another pardon of Russ Ulbricht, who ran a dark web marketplace where illegal drugs were sold. Trump called those who'd prosecuted him scum. It was announced all government diversity staff would be put on paid leave, and a $500 billion AI startup was announced, to which Elon Musk responded, they don't actually have the money. On Wednesday, Trump called on Putin to stop the ridiculous war in Ukraine, or Russia would face sanctions. Then on TV, the president appeared to hint Joe Biden could be prosecuted. And on security protection, former Trump Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had his revoked. So had former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Both allegedly faced threats from Iran. Thursday brought another speech. Tariffs were mentioned, as was the idea of Canada becoming part of the US.
I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit.
In Seattle, a federal judge blocked Trump's executive order to ban birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. And the president ordered documents on the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. to be declassified.
That's a big one, huh?
The week ended with images of deportation flights. Anthony Fauci, who led the US response to COVID, had his security revoked, and the president left Washington for California and North Carolina. In his inauguration speech, Donald Trump had declared,
"The golden age of America begins right now."
However you describe the Trump presidency, it's definitely begun.
We can't just let this happen and not say anything.
Newark, New Jersey Mayor Ras Baraka demanded answers on Friday after agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, rounded up undocumented migrants as well as American citizens in a raid of this seafood distributor and retailer, according to media reports. Baraka said the raid involved detaining a military veteran and violations of the people's rights.
Some ICE agents raided a business in our city without a warrant. They went in the back of the establishment. We believe that there were 3 people who they say were undocumented that they detained, but they also detained folks that were, in fact, citizens of this country. One person showed their military veteran identification and was still questioned anyway. People were fingerprinted. Pictures of their IDs and face were taken. None of these people were rapists or murderers or criminals. The problem with it is that ICE went in there without a warrant.
The raid in New Jersey follows President Donald Trump's pledge to deport millions of immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. Trump issued a raft of executive orders after taking office that aim to clamp down on illegal immigration and has taken steps to punish officials who resist enforcement of his sweeping crackdown.
It's a slippery slope when we think it's okay to suspend the Constitution of the United States in order to make a political point or statement. That ICE response in their letter that they put out, they say, well, in a very cavalier way, these things happen. There will be some citizens who are going to ask for their ID.
In a statement, an ICE spokesperson said that agents may encounter U.S. citizens while doing their work and may request identification to confirm someone's identity, as was the case in Newark. The spokesperson also said that ICE was investigating the incident.
U.S. stocks closed lower on Friday as investors digested a mixed bag of economic data and earnings reports, as well as the first week of President Donald Trump's second term. The Dow and S&P 500 both shed roughly 0.3%, and the Nasdaq lost 0.5%. Existing home sales for December were stronger than expected, while business activity slowed to a 9-month low in January. And the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment reading for January dropped for the first time in 6 months. Despite Friday's stock losses, Wall Street's indexes advanced for the second week in a row. Liz Miller is president of Summit Place Financial Advisors.
What we're really going to take from all of this is that there is, optimism with some caution with the new administration stepping in. And when we look across the market, we do know there's that handful of top 10, top 15 S&P 500 stocks that are richly valued and have had tremendous runs. But that leaves us about 485 stocks that are at very reasonable valuations and have not fully participated. So this is still a very attractive market moving forward for investors.
Among Friday's stock moves, shares of AI chip leader NVIDIA fell 3%, reversing a sharp rally earlier in the week. Texas Instruments shares tumbled 7.5% after forecasting first-quarter profit below Wall Street estimates. And Boeing shares lost ground after the plane maker warned of a fourth-quarter loss of about $4 billion. Next week brings a slew of key inflation and economic growth data, as well as the Federal Reserve's two-day policy meeting, with the central bank expected to leave interest rates unchanged.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: St. Kitts Nevis Agriculture Minister underscores relationship between agriculture and capital markets at Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference.
St. Kitts Nevis Police records a 57% homicide resolution rate.
ECCB issues alert on fraudulent stablecoin activity. Opposition MP in Guyana roasts government on economic policies. 11 countries to benefit from the USAID-funded Caribbean Resilient Economies and Sectors Activity Reset Grant Program. Internationally, 4 female hostages held in Gaza by Hamas handed over to Israeli military. Thank you for listening.